Sound check 1 2 1 2. We good on YouTube. Sound check 1 2 1 2. We are on Facebook, Rumble, X, YouTube. We are good. Let's make sure the stream comes through on LinkedIn, and then we will get to it. Didn't come through yet, so let's see if it's going through on LinkedIn. There we go. We go live on LinkedIn. Good morning, everybody. As y'all are checking in, y'all see what the topic is today by popular demand from yesterday's live. A couple of people asked me to talk about public speaking, so I'm going to do that here today. I got a lot of points. We'll see if we get through all of these. I don't want to take too much time here. I want to see if we can stay disciplined on the clock. Yesterday, I went a little bit longer than I expected. But today, what we're going to do is, first of all, I'm going to give you exactly what the title says. I'm going to give you 6 keys when it comes to public speaking. And I do tend to be angling this towards people who want to speak and you want to do it for some form of business, whether you're going to do your own events, whether you want to speak on other people's stages, other people's events, you want to get hired to speak, etc. That's what this is really going to be about for people who want to get into speaking and you want to do it as some form of business, whether you want to do a TED talk, you want to give paid speeches, you want to have your own events where you're speaking, anything like that. That's what I'm going to talk about. And you can do this online. You can do it offline as well. When I say public speaking, it doesn't have to be in person with an audience. It also can be virtually with, let's say you're doing it through Zoom or something like that. So this can apply in all of those areas. So I have those 6 keys to public speaking. And depending on how quickly I get through that, I will also tell you all how you get evaluated. When you stand on the stage and speak, let's say specifically for business, there are some points on evaluation, how that actually happens. I'm going to tell you exactly how you get evaluated by audiences when you do speaking as a business. I'm going to talk about that. If we have enough time, I'll get to that. Then also have some points on communicating with impact. We're probably not going to get to that one, but we'll see if we get through these 12, 6 and 6 here. Before we get started, let me introduce myself. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day, former 9-year pro athlete, author of 35 books, done 4 TEDx talks, created this brand called Work on Your Game. Our job here is we help people perform at their highest level, do so consistently, and produce more results. What we do is we extract the tools and the processes that work in the sports world. We translate them over to the business world. And people who work with me, you ask them, they say, Dre, you get straight to the point. You're no fluff, no BS, no sugarcoating. And I appreciate that. I like that style. So if you like that type of style, look at the link on my bio, the link in my bio, which is workonyourgameuniversity.com. You can learn more about possibly working with me, joining our programs, and having me as your direct coach. Let's get into the topic here. And by the way, if you are new around here, aren't usually in my lives, I respond to all questions and comments at the end. So after I get through all my material, then I'll respond to questions and comments. If you have any while I'm talking, you can go ahead and post it, or you might want to hold it until I start actually responding to comments, so to make sure that I see it. So getting into this, 6 keys for public speaking. I don't need to give that much more background on this. Again, this is more tailored towards people who want to speak as a business, not just speaking like at church. I'm talking about you want to somehow, some way make a business out of your speaking abilities. Number one point, speak about a topic that you actually know. This one seems quote unquote common sense, as some people like to say, but people only call things common sense after they got told the answer. So you might consider it common sense, but until you actually have experienced it, it maybe isn't common sense. Speak on a topic that you know. In other words, do not accept an invitation to stand on a stage and speak on a subject that you do not know at a high level, or we could even call it an expert level, but it has to be something that you know about, so that you're speaking from actual real life experience, because you give value to your audience and they will actually listen when you're sharing with them something that maybe they haven't already heard, or something that they don't already know, or at least an angle from which they don't already know or they haven't already heard. Now, let me explain something to you here. When we say knowing things, speak on the subject that you know, because this is an important one, especially for you educated folks, people you consider yourselves, quote unquote, educated because you went to college or you have some level of degree. Knowing things means you have actually done them, not that you have read a book about them, passed a test on it, got a degree on it, or watched it from a classroom lecture hall seat. I'm pausing there because I want that point to sink in. So if you know something, that means that you have actually done the thing. You're not just talking about it. You didn't just read about it. You didn't just take a course on it. You didn't just take some classes on it. You didn't watch a documentary. Not your cousin did it. You have to have actually done it. That's how you know something. You don't know something till you've done it. You don't really know it till you can teach it. So when I say speak about a topic you know well, you'll have useful information because of your life experience. Everybody understand this? I remember years ago, I was in some, I think I was in Clubhouse and I was in some random room with some person. And there was some debate going. I don't even remember what the topic was we were talking about, but this female I was challenging her on a point that she made, and her defense of the point that she was making was, well, I studied this subject in college. Like, mofo, who the hell cares what you studied in college? Now, I went to college. I have a college degree. And those of you who have college degrees, I want to be very clear to you. You getting a degree in a subject does not mean you know anything. It just means you got a degree. Getting a degree, we know how the American educational system works and most other educational systems. It means that you sat in the classroom, you absorbed the information that was given to you, you were able to prove your ability to absorb that information by regurgitating it on an exam or a test. And that's how you pass. And you pass enough tests over enough years, they give you a degree, and then they call you educated. That does not mean you know anything. It just means you passed a bunch of tests. And again, I say this as a person who has done it. The things that I know are things that I've actually done, not things that I studied. And there's a difference between studying something and knowing it. Knowing it is when you've done it. Have I said that often enough? Let's move on to point number 2. I'm talking here today how to be a great public speaker. So we got speak on a subject that you actually know. Number 2, you have to have some real life experience in the thing that you are talking about. What this provides is story, and it provides credibility. When you speak on things that you have real life experience in, that allows you to tell stories around it because you're talking about things that you have actually lived and actually done. That means you're not on stage just spewing a bunch of information, because we can get information from Google or Chat GPT or from a book. I don't need to go to a conference and listen to you talk from the stage if all you're going to do is tell me a bunch of information. Again, a book can give me information. Your public speaking skill, a lot of public speaking, any of you who's done any, especially professional public speaking, is story, not just information. It's not just details, not just facts. It's not just whatever other word people use these days. It's the story. If any of you ever hear me giving a speech like professionally, you'll notice that probably I would say more than half of my material is story, not just information. Again, I just explained to you why. I remember I spoke at a conference. This is probably about 2018. And this was a conference that I initially got introduced to them because I filled out what they call a call for speakers. Nobody there knew me. I just filled out the form. They said, all right, you can come speak. They didn't pay me. I went on my own dime to go speak there. I traveled. I paid for the travel. I paid for the hotel. I paid for everything. Went there, spoke. After the event, the feedback that was received from the audience about me was so solid that they asked me to come back and give the keynote speech the following year. The first year wasn't the keynote. Second year was the keynote. And they paid me for this one, and they paid for everything else this time around. And there were 2 keynote speakers at this event because the event was 2 or 3 days long. So I spoke on like Tuesday, and then the other person spoke on Wednesday. And I was there on Wednesday to hear the other speaker because I was still relatively new in the speaking business. And I wanted to hear this other speaker and see maybe this other speaker is better than me. Maybe they have some skills that I don't have. So let me see what this person's doing. Maybe I can learn something. So I stayed for that second day and listened to the other speaker talk. And it was a woman, I will say that much. And her whole speech was all information. She had all these slides. She had like 100 slides. And she was just going through the slides and basically just sharing the information that was on the slides. And it was a very boring keynote speech. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, I stayed here because I thought maybe I could steal some tips or some insights or some tools from this other speaker. And her speech was garbage. After that, I said, this is garbage. And I've seen enough speakers, by the way. I've been to enough events and seen enough speakers that a lot of them fit that exact same description that I just gave. What I'm telling all of you is don't do this. What I just told you, don't do that. If you're going to get on stage as a public/professional speaker, the only difference between a public speaker and a professional speaker is professional speakers getting paid. Okay, so if you want to get paid to stand on a stage and speak, you need to be speaking from personal experience, and your personal experience should be part of your presentation. You need to share that in your presentation. People need to know, why are you talking about this subject? What have you done? What have you experienced? What have you lived in your life that makes you credible to be speaking on this subject? Because again, if all you were doing is giving people information that you have researched off the internet, or you read out of a book, or that you found on Google, whatever, again, why do you need to stand on the stage and give me that information? You could write that in a blog post and I can get the exact same information. So speak on things that you have actually done and that you actually know. And this requires you, all of you, to go actually get some real life experience. You got to actually go do shit so you have something to talk about. Again, if you ever hear me give a speech, you're going to notice I'm going to be telling you a whole bunch of things that I have actually done and why. And the reason why I tell you the things that I've done, because they give, what's the word I want to use here? It creates a connection between the information and the person, because you got three pieces when you stand on the stage giving a speech. You have the person who is speaking, you have the information that I'm trying to convey, and then you have the glue between the two of them. The glue between the information and the speaker is the experience. Everybody understand this? That's the glue. So if I stand on the stage and talk to you about discipline, and I tell you I have this concept called the third day, about showing up and giving your best effort when you least feel like it. Well, the question that you have in your mind subconsciously that you may not be able to consciously articulate is, okay, I get the concept of the third day. That sounds good. Now I get that you're the one saying it, but why are you talking about this? I mean, there's a million people who might be able to talk about this concept of showing up and giving your best effort when you don't feel like it. We all understand the concept. All of us have days when we don't feel like going to work, right? Everybody has days like that. And everyone understands that we should go to work and work hard on those days anyway. And anybody could technically say that, but why am I saying it? So when I tell you the story of how I came about this concept, now it makes sense why I'm the one talking about it. This is why you need to have real life experience in whatever topic you're going to be talking about. And by the way, I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end. So if you're posting one, I'll answer it when I'm done. This is the reason why you want to get real life experience in your subjects, and why, if you're going to stand on a stage and give a speech and you want to get paid for it, your speech should be driven from your experiences. And this is what I suggest to people, is drive it from the experience first and get information second. What I mean by that is, look through your life, your vault of experiences, find the experiences that have made the most impact on you. And from those experiences, figure out what you want other people to learn, and your presentation should be drawn out from that direction. It's the experience, then the point, not the point and then the experience. So if the point was, for example, if I said something like, my point is, I go to a marketing conference and say, you should do a live stream every day on social media. Let's just say that was my point, right? I wouldn't say that in the speech, but let's just say that I did. If that was my point, what I would need to do, instead of deciding that that's the point and then finding some information that supports it, which is what a lot of speakers do, and why a lot of speakers suck. And this is why a lot of you have a lot of opportunity here, because many speakers, even the ones who are getting paid, are not very good. And trust me, I've seen this with my own eyes, that many of them are just garbage. Instead, you want to find things that you have done successfully, that have worked for you and have made an impact for you and for others through you. And then you find the point from that. Is that making sense of what I'm saying here? So, for example, to give you an example of something that would work, if I was going to go speak at an event, I might say something like, let's say I was talking to a bunch of marketers or a bunch of people who are trying to break into an industry. And that would be a perfect audience for me, because I've been trying to break into industries myself, and I have figured out ways to break in. I might tell a story. First thing I'm going to figure out is, all right, I'm talking to a bunch of people who want to break into an industry. I know this because I talked to the person who booked me, and I know those are the people who are in the audience. So you should know your audience. So I know my audience are a bunch of people trying to break through. I'm going to think, okay, well, Dre, when did you ever find yourself in a position where you were trying to break through? I'll think of something like, okay, when I was trying to get into playing professional basketball, I was trying to break through. I didn't have any I didn't know anybody who could help me out. Nobody was kind of like bringing me in the door. I had to break my way into the industry. Now think about the ways that I did that and the things that I tried, stuff that worked, stuff that didn't work. See, I'm going to tell that story. And eventually I'm going to get to the point where it actually worked. And then from the story that I tell, Like I went to these events, and I'll talk about all this on Monday because I'm gonna give my whole background for those of you who don't know me. But I'm gonna talk about these events that I went to, and all these people I reached out to, and all these emails that I sent, and these cold calls that I made, and all this money that I invested trying to get this breakthrough. And I finally was able to get the breakthrough. And from that, I can explain things like taking initiative and being willing to stick your neck out there and investing in yourself and betting on yourself and trying different angles. And if this angle doesn't work, try a different one. That doesn't work, try a different one. See, now I can give you the information. Now I can give you the stuff that I want you to understand. But it makes sense only after I explain to you that I've done it myself. See, if I can't explain to you that I've done it myself and that I've lived it and give you some narrative to follow, then you're not really going to get the point. You won't absorb the point. So any of you who's ever sat in all of you went to school on some level. Any of you ever had a teacher or a professor in school who just gave you a whole bunch of information and you found yourself falling asleep in class, being very bored by the professor or the teacher, getting yelled at because they caught you sleeping, or just not absorbing the information even though they were giving you a whole lot of it? Any of you ever found yourself in that situation? You ever found yourself in a situation not absorbing information, even though somebody was giving you a lot of it? This is the reason. Human beings are not wired to absorb information on its own. Just information by itself is very boring and it's hard to follow. If someone stands on the stage and gives you an hour's worth of information, you might retain 1 or 2 pieces of information. The rest of it, you're going to forget. Even if you take pictures of all the slides. I go to conferences and every time a slide comes up, people are taking pictures of all the slides. Like, you're never going to look at those pictures ever again in your life. They're on your phone. You're never going to look at them again. And this is what people do. And when I give speeches, any of you, again, I told you, if you ever come to an event and I'm speaking, you won't have to take any pictures of the slides because there ain't going to be any slides. I don't do slides. I do not do slides. And I've been in a bunch of events where the people running it, they're like insisting, Dre, please use slides. Our audience likes slides. Like, no, they don't like fucking slides. They're just so used to everybody having them that they think that everybody needs to have them. And I said, I'm not doing any damn slides. And I remember I spoke at an event once and I said I did like a title slide. They say, can you just put a title slide so that people know what it is? They're so used to looking at, there's going to be this big projector on the screen, a big projector next to you while you're speaking. And I would say at the beginning of my speech, like, all right, I've been seeing all y'all taking pictures of all the slides, all conference. So you see that slide right there? That slide is not changing. It's going to be just like that the whole time. And people laughed and some of them even clapped. And I said, y'all don't have to take pictures of the slides. Just listen to me and you're going to get everything. I don't need any slides. And they appreciated that. And this one of the events that I did that was the same event that brought me back next year if they didn't even know me the first year. I'm saying all that to say this, ladies and gentlemen. If you want people to remember what you said, you have to tell them a story, not just information. Again, all of you went to school. If a teacher stood in front of the room and just gave you information for 45 minutes or an hour, you didn't remember any of it. But they told you a story, you remember that. People follow narrative, not information. If I could give you one thing that can help you as a presenter, it's this right here. Narrative over information. This is the reason why current events are always a popular topic. The reason why when I do these lives, most of the time I'm talking about current events. The reason why current events are more popular than, let's say, evergreen subjects, even like this one that I'm doing here today, is that a current event is literally a story. So we talk about the election. The election is a story. This is a thing that's happening right now. Everybody has an opinion. Everybody's following it. Everybody's paying attention. Why? Because it's a story. Human beings are attracted to stories. So if you're going to be a speaker, you must. I'm not suggesting, I'm demanding that you tell stories when you speak, not just information. Information is boring. People will not listen to your information. They will not remember your information, and they are not going to remember anything else that you said if all you're giving them is information. You got to find a connection between the information and you, and that connection is called the story. Everybody got that? Okay. And this is why you got to have real life experience in whatever it is that you're talking about, because that gives you the room to tell the story. It also lends credibility to your point. If you're going to talk about business, then you have to have actually done some business. You're going to talk about a sport, you have to actually have done that sport. It gives credibility to your point, and also much easier for other people to follow what you're saying, because it's easier to remember a story than it is to remember information. Again, any of you tell me some information you learned when you were in the 10th grade. None of you could tell me anything you learned in the 10th grade, but can you tell me something that happened when you were in the 10th grade, when you were age, 15 or 16? all of you could tell me at least one thing that happened when you were age 15 or 16. Why? Because the thing that happened is a story, and the stuff you learned in school is information. You forgot the information, but you remembered the story. All right. So if you're going to be a speaker, keep that in mind. Point number 3, we're talking here today about keys to being a good public speaker, specifically for business. Number 3, you need to actually care about the subject. Whatever you're talking about, you need to actually give a damn about the topic. Now, let's be clear. Think about what I said in the first 2 points. You can have real life experience in a subject and have actually done it and have real knowledge and information, but you don't really give a damn about it. That means you should not be speaking about it. For example, when I was a senior in high school, I worked at McDonald's. I could explain to you how it goes to work at McDonald's. I could explain to you how I got the job, how it worked there, the uniform I had to wear, the jobs specifically that I did, which was working the grill and putting the burgers together. I have real life experience and real credibility in telling you how things work in McDonald's. The problem is I'm not interested in talking about McDonald's. I don't care. I have no passion, have no energy around the subject. Therefore, I shouldn't be talking about it. Why? Because I don't care. See, you got to talk about things you care about, because that conveys passion, if you want to call it that, or just energy, or just giving a damn. And when you give a damn about a subject, your energy on the topic will be higher than if you're talking about something that you're not really interested in. So finding something that you care about, remember that emotions sell, facts merely tell. So when you care about the topic, the audience will buy in, because most of communication is nonverbal. Whatever number you've heard, 50%, 90%, whatever. People buy into how they feel about a subject more than they buy into the information about it. I already emphasized that in the previous point. Moving on to number 4. We're talking about public speaking. If you're going to get in front of an audience, you want to make money from speaking, period. Number 4 is you need to actually dress well. And this is not a metaphor. You need to dress well. If you're going to stand in front of an audience of people, whether you're doing it online or offline, for business specifically, again, this is for business. Now, you want to make money from your speaking, you need to actually look good. Again, this is not a metaphor. You need to physically look good. You need to dress well. If you're a man, you need to put on a suit. If you're a woman, make sure your makeup is done and your hair is right, and make sure all of you make sure there's nothing in your teeth, and make sure your background looks good. If you're online, you need to actually look good. And I would say you need to look better than your audience. You need to outdress the audience. Why do you need to outdress the audience? You need to outdress the audience because you're the one on stage. You are the authority by virtue of being the one on stage, which means you should look more, however you define the term, professional than everybody who is sitting and listening to you, because they're there to listen to you. You're not there to listen to them. So if everybody in the audience is business casual, you should be business formal. Whatever level they're dressed, you need to be a level above that. And if everybody is formal, you need to be formal. You need to be right there with them. All right, always outdress your audience. Why? Because it subconsciously lends a level of credibility and authority to you by the way that you physically show up. Yes, this matters. No, nobody's going to say anything about it, but yes, it matters. Well, they might say something. Somebody might say, if you're a woman, somebody might say, I like your shoes. If you're a man, somebody might say, I like your suit, or I like the color of your tie, or whatever, your socks, whatever. They'll compliment you. But if you are not outdressing your audience, nobody's going to point it out to you that you're not outdressing your audience while you're on the stage. But does it matter? Yes, it does. Remember, most communication is nonverbal, meaning people are picking up things about you that have nothing to do with what you say. And if they don't buy into your credibility because you don't look the part, then they're not hearing anything that you said. Did everybody hear that? You need to look the part of whatever it is you're going to say. So if you're going to stand on the stage and talk about business, for example, or doing better in your professional career, you need to look like someone who understands business and doing well in a professional career, which means if you have on cheap clothing, or your makeup's not done right, or your suit doesn't fit the right way, but you're standing up there talking to people about how to be successful in business, there is a disconnect between what you're saying and the way you're presenting yourself. And again, does this matter? Yes, it does. Yes, it does. People are picking up on this. And again, nobody's going to say anything to you. Nobody's going to raise their hand and point it out like, hey, you're talking about business, but I don't like the way your shoes look, or your suit's not fitting the right way, or your shirt's not ironed. Nobody's going to say anything. But if they don't buy into your credibility, the credibility of the way you present yourself physically, then they're not absorbing anything that you say verbally. Everybody get it? So it's like if you're walking down the street and some bum who's sitting on the corner in a cardboard box starts telling you the same things that I'm saying to you right now, you probably would not absorb the things that that guy is saying, even if he's saying the exact same things that I'm saying, simply because of the way he presented himself. By presentation, you're ignoring him. You might not even you might cross the street before he even gets a chance to talk to you, just because of the way he presents himself. And if someone in a full business suit walks up to you and starts talking about some complete nonsense, you will give them your full attention, at least for a minute or two, just because of the way they presented themselves. Is this true or not? So remember, most communication is nonverbal, folks. You are picking up on people's nonverbal cues before you listen to anything that they say verbally. And people are doing the same thing to you. So if you want to be heard, you need to look like somebody who should be heard by that particular audience. So every audience is unique. So if you're talking to an audience of athletes, you probably want to look like you've been to the gym sometime in the last 30 days. All right, if you're talking to an audience of business people, you probably want to look like you know something about business. What is the audience expecting? So this is about you just putting yourselves in the shoes of the people you want to present yourself to and making sure that you look the part of whatever they might be expecting. And this is all about knowing your audience. Any of you who's in business, you understand the value of understanding your audience, knowing your customer. So how you present yourself is a thing. So anybody telling you that this doesn't matter doesn't know what they're talking about. This does matter. Okay. Even if you're not into fashion and you're not into wearing expensive clothing or looking like your clothing is expensive, even if you're not into this stuff, understand that people in your audience are buying you or rejecting you based on it. So you need to learn how to play the game, even if it's not the kind of game that you want to be in. Everybody understands? Good. Point number 5. We're talking here today about how to be a better public/professional speaker. Number 5, prepare. Preparation is the hallmark of the professional. Hallmark of a professional is preparing ahead of time. All right. Why do you prepare ahead of time? Because the less you prepare ahead of time, we call this doing your homework over here, the less you have to worry about what you're actually going to say, what you're going to do. And now your mind is free to deal with anything that happens in a moment. This is the way that any of you ever see a comedian doing stand-up and somebody in the audience says something or does something and the comedian starts talking to or about the person in the audience. How is a comedian able to do that just off the cuff to start doing that? Well, one is because they're comedians, so they're practicing doing stuff like that. Another reason is because they already know their entire set. They already know every joke they're going to tell. They know all the act outs of the jokes. They know every single thing they're going to say before they get on the microphone. Therefore, if something random happens while they're talking, they can deal with the random thing and not get thrown off of their game because they don't have to they're not thinking about what they're going to say next. They already know what they're going to say next. They already did the work ahead of time. Same thing with an athlete. You practice before the game. So if something random happens in the game, you can deal with the random thing and still get back to your game plan. Same thing with a professional speaker. If you already know what you're going to say before you get on the stage, if something random happens, the mic stops working, the lights go out, some random person in the crowd says something or does something, or something funny happens that you weren't planning, you can deal with it because it won't throw you off your script because you already know what your script is because you prepared ahead of time. The best professionals at anything, any line of work, are always prepared ahead of time. And if you ever worked in the kitchen of a high-end restaurant, you know that the cooks back there get a whole bunch of stuff prepared before the evening rush or before the lunch rush or before the customers even come in and start ordering food. They get a whole bunch of things ready. Any of you who is a professional at anything you do, you do all the prep work the night before or way ahead of time so that when things start happening, you are already ready to deal with them. No professional deals with things as they come just randomly. And if you end up in that situation, it was a mistake. That's not by design. So always preparing ahead of time. If you want to be a great speaker on a stage, and especially if you're going to do it for business, you are always prepared ahead of time. And most professional speakers, I know enough of them, and being one myself, most have one or two main presentations that we give over and over and over again. Some people might have 3. And if you've been in the game a long time, you might have 3 or 4. But most of us, we have 1 or 2 pet presentations that we give over and over and over again. And we go through our whole careers with that to the point that somebody could wake you up in the middle of your sleep and just give you a line in the middle of your speech and you can pick it up right there and keep going. That's all part of the preparation. And again, look around in any profession, all high level professionals are always prepared ahead of time. Point number 6, we're talking here today about how to be a better public speaker, better professional speaker. If you want to make money from this, number 6, know your audience. You must know your audience. Who are you talking to? This will help you whenever you're speaking. Actually, before I get to that, let me tell you this. Anytime that I'm booked to give a speech to an audience, and this is on the business side of things, I always have a conversation with whoever is in charge. Usually that's the person who I'm dealing with in order to get the business dealt with in the first place. The person who books me, sends me the contract, make sure the money goes through, all of that stuff. I have a conversation with that person and I'm always asking them about the audience. Like, who are your audience members? Who's going to be at this event? Who are these people? What are they looking for? What are their biggest challenges? Where are they going next? What's one thing they want to get out of this presentation? And depending on the event and how much time we have, I will even have conversations with a couple of the people who will be in the audience. Thank you for those gifts over there. Time with, I can't see the rest of your name, but I appreciate that. Over there on TikTok. I'll have a conversation with a couple people who are actual audience attendees to find out. I'm asked the same questions to find out what they're looking for, what they want to get out of it. Even when I'm in an event, like the last event I spoke at was about 2 weeks ago. I was in DC, and I spoke to a couple of people. They just came up to me because I was standing in the back of the room and they knew who I was. So they came up to me before I started speaking. And I asked them, hey, what's one thing you want to get out of this presentation that I'm about to give? This is before I got on stage. So I said, if you get one thing from this, what do you want to get? And I noted their answers, and I can weave that into my presentation. Now, how can I do that? Some of you may be wondering, well, you're standing in the back of the room, you're about to go on stage in 5 minutes. How can you weave that into a presentation 5 minutes before the presentation? It's because of the preparation, because of what I already told you in the previous point. Because I already knew exactly what my presentation was, if they tell me something that I know is already in the presentation, then fine, I have to do nothing different because it's already in there. Or if they say something that I maybe wasn't planning on saying, I can drop it in somewhere because they just told me that. But the reason I can drop it in is because the rest of the presentation, I already have it set. I don't have to think about it. I'm not constantly thinking about anything. So I have plenty of mental space to add in any extra. So the same way that if I'm in the middle of the presentation and somebody, like the waiter, let's say they're eating lunch or eating dinner, and the waiter drops a plate in the middle of my speech, I can make a joke about him dropping the plate. It's not going to throw me off my speech. Why? Because I already knew what I was going to say. I'm already prepared ahead of time so I can riff, talk about that, and get right back to where I was, because it's kind of like you're driving with Google Maps. You make a wrong turn, the map just adjusts because the map already knows where you need to go. All right, you follow? So this is why knowing your audience matters so much. So let me give you these. Let me recap these. Did I say everything I need to say about this? Yeah, so you want to know the needs, issues, challenges of your audience so that you are making sure that you're addressing what they actually want, not just saying what you want to say. And usually, if both sides are doing their jobs properly, that's you and the people who ask you to come speak, they're only bringing you in to speak because whatever it is that they know that you say should be relevant to the audience anyway. So it's not like you have to. It's not like I'm getting asked to come speak at some scientist conference about how to do better science. They're not going to book me. They're not calling me because they see what I talk about and they say, okay, what this guy talks about is not relevant to this audience. So usually I'm only being asked to speak in places where my message is already very relevant to the audience. So it's not like I got to make a ton of adjustments to what I normally talk about to serve each audience, because I'm only getting asked to speak in places where my message is relevant anyway. So that means the client, that's the person who's booking you, they are picking you for the right reason, and you are only accepting the gig for the right reason. Usually, I haven't had many experiences where someone was asking me to come speak somewhere on a subject that I wasn't already proven to speak about. So let me recap these points, and if y'all want me to, I'll talk about the evaluations. So 6 keys to being a good public speaker. Number 1, speak about a topic that you know well. In other words, you have very useful information, something new that people haven't heard already. Number 2, have experience in your area. Experience means real life action, not studying, not reading, not going to school. Number 3, actually care about the subject. There are things you've done in your life that you don't really care about. You shouldn't be speaking about those things. Speak about things you actually give a damn about, and you have some real energy or passion or some real, just say conviction about the subject. Number 4, dress well. You need to dress better than everybody in your audience. Why? Because people are subconsciously judging you based on the way you present yourself, and they will not listen if they don't respect or believe you credible based on the way you present yourself physically. Number 5, prepare ahead of time. Hallmark of the professional is that you are prepared before the situation occurs. Number 6, know your audience. This will help you possibly drop little notes and anecdotes that are relevant to the people in the room. And these small touches go a long way because it shows that you prepared. It shows that you're thinking about them, and it shows that you know something about what they're dealing with. You're not just giving a speech just based on things that you have memorized. All that said, let me take questions. Then we're already at, what is it, 8:47. Let me take questions. If you have questions or comments, I'll address those. Then we'll wrap this up and I'll let you all get to your Black Friday holiday weekend. And Monday, we'll be back to our normal process. We'll be back to, usually I talk about current events on these lives, but I told you I would go a little bit off script yesterday and today just because we're on a holiday. So what I'm going to do, just so y'all know, What I'm going to do Monday is I'm going to give my background for those of you who've been watching my regular live streams, just my background, because a lot of people don't really know my background. A lot of people not watching here today because the holiday weekend. I knew they wouldn't be. But Monday, that's what we'll be back to. And then Tuesday on, we'll be back to even more current events, pending what is happening. So over on YouTube, Malcolm says, can I do a video about why men should have, yeah, you asked me that the other day. I will be doing that. I think if you're the same person, Malcolm, you asked me that the other day. Yes, I will be getting to that. Just, it's not going to be immediate. I got a backlog of material, but it's coming. All right, so address those. Let me see if we got anything on Instagram. Then we'll jump over to Tach Mukan. Good morning on Instagram. EMH said title defense. I don't know how to prepare. Well, how do you get a title if you don't know how to prepare? Those don't seem to connect. So I don't know if I believe you. All right, so let's see what we got over on TikTok. You got a question or comment on TikTok? Go ahead and post it. I think I can see if anybody posted anything. And if not, then we will move on. Let me see what we got. So I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern on normal days, even when we're not in the holidays. We'll see if we keep going in the Christmas season. Maybe we'll take some days off in the Christmas season. We'll see. Unc Steve said, I don't have to experience something to know something. Oh, yes, you do. You don't really know it until you've experienced it. If you're going to stand on a stage and speak about a subject, then you have to experience it. So if you understood the context of what I said, you can know something like, let me get an example. An example is, I know that this building I'm looking at over here is 50 stories high because I can simply count. But I wouldn't stand on stage and give a speech about building 50-story buildings because I have no real life experience. I have no credibility to be talking about the subject. So if you understand the context of what I said, which I explained very articulately, then what you're saying here is a straw man comment. So Steve says, I know slavery existed, but I never experienced it myself. Yes, exactly. Straw man comment is what I'm saying. You don't have the credibility to stand on stage and give a speech about that because, again, who cares that you know about it? Everybody knows about it. Everybody in the room knows about it. Why do you need to be on stage? Using your example here, it doesn't matter. So Parksdale said, well, just tell the truth then. I don't know what you're referring to there. And any of you who's, I don't know what 205 Parksdale, I don't know what you're referring to. And the other comment that I was just reading about, have you ever been paid to stand on the stage and speak about these things that you know? If the answer is no, based on these examples that you're giving, I would be willing to bet that you have not. So this is exactly what I mean. Traditional all day. Good morning to you. Comment is, your experience is anecdotal, is not valid as you pontificate about whatever. Oh, sure it is. It is valid. It's valid because what I'm speaking about is speaking on stages as a business, and I get paid to speak on stages as a business. So as I just said, have you ever been paid to speak on stages about these things that you're using as examples? I would bet the answer is no, which is why you don't have the credibility, which is why you are in the comment and not on the screen explaining to people how to do this, because you have not done it. That's my point. All right, so Mr. Zohaib Khan, good morning to you. Someone said, all right, so I don't know why I seem to get more of this trolling nonsense on a day like this when I do my other ones. Maybe I just don't see these. Maybe I just didn't see them. So let's see. Someone asked, am I off work? I'm never off work. I'm at work right now. I just didn't put a suit on today. But I'm never off work. I'm on work every day. Let's see. Anybody else got a question or time with Reed LA? Thank you for the gifts today while I was talking. Thank you. Time is fine. All right, time. Thank you. Said wisdom. Yes. Let me see. Time said, I'm bad with verbal pauses. Any fast remedies for verbal pauses? Well, verbal pause is not necessarily a bad thing. It just depends on how you do it. So if you're talking about speaking, if you practice ahead of time with your speech, it's fine to give a verbal pause, because if you're talking to an audience of people on something that they haven't heard before, which I'm assuming if they're listening to you, you're telling them something that they haven't heard, at least not from your angle, then a pause is good because it gives them a chance to absorb what you just said. If you speak too quickly, then people may not be able to absorb everything that you said. So I remember I was doing a Zoom training for a sales team a couple months ago. I'll answer that question in a second. K Cruz, give me 1 second on Instagram. I was doing a sales training for a sales team in October of this year. And they had me booked for, I did it one training a week for 4 weeks straight. And the first week, the person in charge, the person who had booked me, she said to me, Dre, you gave a lot of really high quality information, but at times you kind of gave the information so quickly and you went to the next point. I'm not sure everybody had a chance to absorb everything that you said. So if you could maybe give them less material, but space it out a little bit more, they might be able to absorb a little bit better, which is a good point, because again, you got to give people space to absorb. So pauses are not a bad thing, time. So just pause after you make a point. And it may not seem like anything breakthrough to you, but it's not breakthrough to you because you already know it, but your audience doesn't know it. They never heard that. So give them the pause so they can think about and absorb what you just said. So, all right. So K Cruz FL says, how do you get public speaking gigs? Well, are you talking about public speaking as in like talking at church, or are you talking about professional speaking as in somebody paying you money? So I'll speak, because what I'm talking about here today is about professional speaking, as in you want to get to the point of getting paid money. You might start off not getting paid, but the angle is trying to get paid. Well, several things. First of all, you have to figure out what you want to speak about. And I'm answering this question is on Instagram. It's okay. So paid speaking gigs, K Cruz. So the first thing is figuring out, what do you want to speak about? What do you want to bring to the table? Now, the biggest challenge that I find with a lot of people when it comes to the professional speaking world is that, or even public speaking, is people want to just share their story. The problem with sharing your story is that everyone in the world has a story. And generally, nobody's going to pay you just to tell your story. So you need to figure out from your story, what can you pull from it, from your actual life experience, from the things that you have done successfully. What can you pull from there that will be useful to another audience of people? Who are those people? And then you need to create a framework around that experience and that credibility that makes your message relevant to a specific audience. So that's a long answer. Hopefully you got it all. I'll give you an example. I'll use myself. So my brand is called Work on Your Game. Now, my background is as a professional athlete. So that's a piece of credibility, because only 1% of people who ever play a sport become professional athletes. So K Cruz said, I did an entire speaking program, so I had plenty, but I don't know how to market myself. Okay, so this answer is going to answer your question. So got a pause connection. Okay, so I'm going to answer your question here. So I look for the pieces in my life that give me the most credibility. What gives me the most credibility is that I played a professional sport. There's so few people who do that. Now, the challenge is, what can I extract from that experience to give to people who maybe don't play sports? Because I could take my sport career, and talk to other athletes. And so I don't have to do too much translation, because other athletes already get it. But because there are a lot of speakers who are former athletes and they talk to sports teams. So they go talk to the football team over here, the baseball team over here, the basketball team over here. I don't really do that. I usually talk to business audiences of people who are not athletes. So my job then is to translate what I took from my sporting experience, translate it over to the business world. And now I had to figure out, how do I market that? And how do I market it? First of all, you got to put a name on it. So I gave it a name. It's called Work on Your Game. That's the name of my brand. And then I had to create a framework. Once I create the framework around it, okay, from Work on Your Game, here's something I took from sports, for example, and here's how it applies to business. Here's something else I took. Here's how it applies to business. And now that I have that framework, that kind of a bite-sized example of what I took from over here and how it can apply over here, now I have to get in front of people who can make the decision to bring me in. And the way that I got started, K Cruz, just using my personal experience, the way I got started is I would go and find events that were just having open calls, like anybody interested in speaking at this event. And I would apply to speak at these events, and some of them chose me, and I would go speak at these events for free. Was not getting paid at all. They didn't even cover my travel, hotel, food, nothing. I would invest in myself to go to these events, and betting on myself to be good. If I was good, then that would lead to paid engagements. That's how I got my speaking career started. So the way I got started as a paid speaker was to do a whole bunch of unpaid speeches. And because I was good, it led to paid speeches. So my first, let's see, maybe 5, 6, 8 times that I got paid to speak was because I spoke somewhere else, not getting paid. And then somebody in the room at the place where I was not getting paid heard me and said, okay, Dre, we will bring you to our event and we will pay you. So that's how I got started. So I basically hustled and grinded my way up. So just going and just putting yourself out there until you can get an opportunity to show that you're any good. K Cruz, does that answer your question? If you have a further question, just go ahead and post in the comments. Let me see what we got over on. Somebody got it on TikTok, or I don't see any comment on TikTok. So I'll wait a moment, see if anybody else got a question, and I'll answer it if anybody else has a question. So marketing yourself is okay, Cruz. Good. Glad to have answered your question. And whatever speaking program you were in, did they provide you any material about how to actually get started? You say you did a speaking program. Did they tell you how to actually put yourself out there? How can you find open calls? Google. That's where I started. I started out just Googling, looking them up, just looking up events is what I actually did. I just looked up events based on whatever I was talking about. So K Cruz, what do you speak about? What's your subject matter? What do you talk about? And or who do you want to talk to? Who's your target audience and what is your topic? If you tell me that, then I can point you more specifically in a better direction. And by the way, those of you who are listening, I do these lives Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Usually I do current events just because it's a holiday weekend. I decided I was going to do a live anyway, that I decided to talk about these evergreen topics. So K Cruz said, yes, we did a resume. A resume? What do you mean a resume? And entrepreneurship? Entrepreneurship is the subject that you talk about? I need you to be more specific. Entrepreneurship is a very broad topic. What about entrepreneurship? How to become an entrepreneur, how to get funding for entrepreneurship, how to sell your business. What about entrepreneurship? That's a super wide topic. To give you an example, what I talk about is how to translate the mindsets of a professional athlete into the business world. So it can kind of be a two-parter, for example, right? How to run a business and sell it within 5 years. Like that can be a subject within entrepreneurship. Or how to start a business with less than $100. Right? That could be a subject in entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship itself is way too broad of a topic. So if you could be more specific, K Cruz, I could help you better. Or you can send me a DM if you like. If you don't respond before I'm done with this, you can send me a DM and my assistant will see it and we can kind of help point you in a better direction. Unless there's an answer that you just haven't given me, you can give it to me. So again, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern, while I'm waiting to see if there's a response to that, workonyourgameuniversity.com. That's where I do my work. That's where I do my coaching to help people out with their, again, main thing people say about me, Dre, you're straight to the point. You're no BS. You're no fluff. And I like the fact you don't sugarcoat things. We can just get to what we need to get to. People who work with me, they all say that. Now, I help people with different things. We have some people building funnels, some people launching business, some people already with mature businesses, some people that want more mindset and confidence and discipline help. Some people want people skills help with their teams. Some people want the sales training, as I was talking about. So there are a lot of different types of people who we work with. We have people in the food industry, the clothing industry, the finance industry, the music industry, writing books, single moms, head of household males. We got a lot of people in a lot of different industries. And again, this is why I told you the through line for all of them is style of delivery, and that we just keep it real and we just get to the point and get to what we need to get to. So if that style of delivery is your cup of coffee, go to workonyourgameuniversity.com. That link is in my bio or in the description, whichever app you are watching me on. I'm on 7 different apps right now. So that's why you see me looking at different screens here. But we'll be back Monday. Monday, I already told you what the topic is. I'm going to give you my entire background, where I came from the upbringing through colleges and getting into the business world and sports, and then getting into the business world, starting online, and then building everything I built now, how we got here today. That's what I'll do on Monday. And then we'll be back to our regular live schedule, Monday, 8 a.m. Eastern. Everybody have a great Black Friday, great holiday weekend. Send me a DM if I can help you with anything else. and go to that link that I told you about that I just described. Work on your game. Have a great day. All right, Kristen, I'll see you in the DM.